For anyone that followed anything or anyone involved in the Downhill World Cup race here in Andorra, I think the story is an obvious one. The flippin' weather. I've been involved with World Cup racing since I started racing them, 16 years old I think it was, back in 2005, and I've never witnessed one to be cancelled. We got very close today to that happening. The heavy thunderstorms weren't the main issue, although that did affect the racing. The main culprit was the wind. It made the track dangerous, as we saw with Camille Balanche having a horrendous crash in qualifying on the large step down. We wish her all the best in her recovery. It also put a question mark on whether the helicopter ambulance would be able to fly should anyone else need to be evacuated. Understandably, the organisers were stuck with the very difficult risk calculations based on a notoriously hard to predict phenomenon. The forecast did predict strong winds, and a few smaller team pits ended up getting blown away the night before the event. A schedule change was announced the evening before that would move the race several hours earlier in the day to try and beat the worst of the storm. The storm came early. It looked like the race would have to be cancelled and riders were left in limbo waiting on the decision to be made. Luckily, with some jump closures and the wind easing off a little, the race was able to run in the afternoon, albeit with some weather hiccups. Before we even get to that, the juniors raced the day before in comparatively glorious conditions. Iris van Leuven in the junior female category donned her fresh World Championships jersey here in Andorra and absolutely sent it down the hillside to a very convincing win in the junior female category. She is looking super confident and strong and is catching series leader Lisa Bouladou and second overall Valentina Sanchez and is now in third place overall. It's going to be a real battle in the second half of this year. In the junior male category, we witnessed some silly fast racing. One of the coolest results was Nathan Ponvian from Goodman Racing, who are a team that Pinkbike Racing actually support. He had his best result last year here in Andorra with a 13th, and he was a privateer, he was on an old bike, he was racing in gardening gloves because he couldn't afford biking gloves. And now this year, he's the European champion and just scored his first World Cup podium in third position. Watch out for him. Christian Hauser from the Union started off slow, but he built his speed and almost clawed his way back to the second win of the year here in Andorra. It wasn't to be though, with him finishing in second behind the charging Ryan Pinkerton. This kid only has one speed and it is flat out. From the first practice run, he looks like he's ready to race and he claimed his first World Cup victory this weekend, which was amazing to see. In the elite women, we were all ready to see who was going to finish in second place behind the dominant Valley Hull. It seems though that the schedule change and uncertainty knocked her off her game and she lacked the usual intensity with her finishing in second place. Nina Hoffman capitalised on this and absolutely stormed down the hillside with power, aggression and a dash of finesse to take her first win of the year. So impressive, and it looked to be a surprising result for the determined German. With Camille Balanche out, Nina moves closer to second place in the overall, but Valley is still way out in front and will take some catching. In the elite men, the first rider to light things up was Antoine Vidal in his European Champs jersey with a fast and loose run that would put him on the hot seat podium for a really long time. A lot longer than he maybe expected, as he claimed his first ever podium with a fourth place. The weather assisted, but still an amazing result. And we'll get to the weather. A lot of riders were losing time in the lower woods on the current hot seat rider in all the categories. This is a really common occurrence on tracks with technical finishes as riders are more tired and it's harder to piece together a perfect section. The hot seat rider usually has rolled the dice and got double sixes. It's no special lines, just raw pace with minimal mistakes. Making wild predictions usually ends up in them not coming true and me never mentioning them again, but this weekend I got one right. Logically speaking, this was the event for Greg Menard to grab a result, and boy did he. His speed in the middle sections of the track was breathtaking and you could see the fire and skills are still there. He was the fastest rider on track in these middle sections and it does not surprise me in the slightest. Second place and just a fraction of a second off the win at 41 years old. Get in, Greg. When Deprella dropped and the heavens opened and the rain started falling with intensity, as a spectator you cannot say how much the rain is helping or hindering the track. In my experience though, it mainly hinders, but it depends on the track. Deprella seemed unfazed and charged down the hill to an excellent time just in front of Minar. Unfortunately for most, the track conditions had passed their peak. The track started to get shiny and slick in a few spots and no one could match Deprella's time, giving him the win, which he was quite happy about. Finn Isles had an impressive run in the rain. The track hadn't properly slicked up quite yet, but he was getting rain on his goggles, but he managed to keep things clean through the rain-misted lines to score valuable points and a really good third place on the day. Ronan Dunn was the first rider we really saw struggle with the rain. You could see his tyres slipping out on the wet rocks, but he managed to hold it together and claim some valuable points. Andreas Kolb did this sickest foot-up drift I have seen in recent memory. Third turn, greasy turn, almost 90 degrees sideways, it was sick. Kolb was the fastest rider in the rain with splits still around about top 10, but he was also the first casualty of the rain, washing out before the triple. At this point, I was getting really quite concerned for the safety of the riders, and it did not look like it was possible to do a heroic run for a good result anymore. It was looking dangerous up there, and Benoit Coulange fell foul to the slippy conditions with a brutal tree shoulder check. He seemed to be okay as he rode down, but that's two bad Andorran races for Benny, and I'm sure he's not a fan of this race anymore. Jordan Williams was the only rider that looked like he played it cool in the final 10 riders, whether it was a conscious decision he made or just his riding style, but he steered his bike safely down the hill to what would be a disappointing result. But he looked to take no risks and can fight another day. Jackson Goldstein came out the start the opposite. Clearly thinking about the series lead, he was about to lay it all on the line. His finesse when the bike was trying to wash out in those upper berms was impressive, as the bike was just trying to disappear from under him. He picked up a flat in the rock section as you could see the tyre wallowing and squirming on the exit, which then caused him to go squint and then just sump the bike out on that stump. Game over from then on and a lot of points lost. Loris battled for some speed, but also struggled with the seriously slippy conditions at this point. His compatriot Bruni, and fastest qualifier, also struggled, and he lined up and we wondered, could he perform a miracle? Could Super Bruni do it? Well, he did perform a miracle. He got down that hill and still managed to get 22nd place, even though it was that slippy. A seriously impressive result, all things considered. Man, weather. I've seen plenty of armchair organisers screeching about how to schedule things better, but the simple thing is racing takes a long time and the weather in the mountains can be unpredictable. To show everyone's run, there needs to be bigger gaps between the riders. To allow privateers and racers to qualify, there has to be more riders, and this means it takes hours. It doesn't matter when you schedule it, the weather can change at any time. Annoyingly, the only real solution is a shorter main event, which is why things are pushing towards shorter tracks and less riders. I don't like it, but I can see why it is happening. On a brighter note, Pinkbike Racing had a wild weekend, with the organisational mess of having the pits 2 kilometres away and Wyatt and myself not racing as we recover from injury. The focus was on Amy and Thibaut having the best event possible. Amy was caught out by the loose track and she barely slammed the dirt hard just before qualifying. We weren't sure if she would be able to take her qualifying run, but after checking her over, she decided to try. Sadly, naughty tree jumped out at her and caused her to have a mechanical, meaning it was her first ever DNF and she did not qualify. Thibaut had a better weekend with fast qualifying with some top 10 splits, finishing the race in 36th. Thibaut is finding his speed and heading to the top. I will be attempting to race next week, so let's see how that goes. So that's it from Pinkbike here in Andorra. We're all done, we're all quite excited to get out here, get to the next race, and fingers crossed for some better weather. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for all the videos next week, and yeah, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in a bit.